AAA members can save big on summer travel with Hertz. When AAA members rent a car with Hertz, they save up to 20% off the base rate, get a free child car seat, and a free additional driver. That's triple savings, and you can unlock even more perks by signing up for Hertz Gold Plus rewards for free. Book today and save at AAA.com/Hertz. Terms apply. Let's go.
Lush green forests, the faint smell of morning dew, mountain vistas, towering cliffs, waterfalls. Oh, we're not done yet. Sea kayaking, mountain biking, whale watching, whiskey tasting, and late-night traditional music sessions where you'll meet all of your new best friends. If all of the above, paired with fresh seafood and a few pints of local brew, sounds like your dream vacation, then have I got the destination for you. And the beauty of it, well, besides the literal spectacular landscapes, is that this trip is best served on wheels. Today, Dan Holland and Pennie Stuart are taking us on a mesmerizing journey through the Scottish Highlands. They are the hosts and producers of the podcast series North Coast 500. The show takes listeners on an audible 516-mile journey with an adventure-packed itinerary with breathtaking castles, world-class surfing, and extraordinary stories from Scotland's history. If you haven't heard of Scotland's answer to Route 66, then you might want to start packing your bags now. The North Coast 500 is one road trip that you don't want to miss. Hello, Dan and Pennie. Thank you for being on the show. I'm so happy to see you guys today.
Hi, Angie. Good to meet you.
Angie, thank you for having us. Lovely to meet you.
With any great journey, we'll start at the beginning. What is the North Coast 500 and where is it?
The North Coast 500 is a circular route around the north of Scotland. Like its name, 500, it's 516 miles of this route that starts and finishes in Inverness, up in the north end of Scotland in the Highlands. And you can either travel it clockwise or you can travel it anti-clockwise. The route is the most spectacular, beautiful route through Scotland that you will ever see. Castles, mountains, lochs, seafood, walks, cycling, sea kayaking, everything all in one road trip.
As well as landscape, you've got whiskey, which is fantastically Scottish. It is just beautiful. Very different in terms of the landscape from one side to the other, which is why it feels like a real trip. You're experiencing the landscape unfold as you go round, but it is gloriously beautiful. I think whatever season, whatever weather, you get something that's really different.
The North Coast 500 has been described as one of the world's greatest drives, which that's high praise. That's a big deal. So what do you think makes it so special aside from the landscape being so beautiful?
I think there's a chance to dive really into a true wilderness still, which is quite special. The sense that you really can be far from the madding crowd and in a very majestic kind of place. I think the people in the Highlands are incredibly warm and welcoming. It's an opportunity to dive into their culture and people will welcome and share that culture with you. It's just a special place to be. It fills you up.
This is probably a good time to remind listeners to please designate a driver if they plan to drink alcohol. Now, Dan, can you take us on a virtual journey? Let's cue up some Scottish road trip tunes and imagine ourselves behind the wheel.
Let's say we're going to go clockwise around the North Coast 500. So we're going to start off going southeast. We're going to leave Inverness, which has got some flat, open firths. You've got the sea, you've got the east coast of Scotland, and then we're going to travel across to the west coast. And we're going to start going down some long glens and valleys. We're going to have mountains on either side. After an hour or two, you're going to end up on the west coast of Scotland, and you're going to be transformed into this land of Norwegian fjords, which rise high up from the sea, this indentated coastline which you're going to navigate and curl your way up as you get to the coast and then turn and start heading north. And there'll be times when You'll be going along a single track road, and you will have a cliff down to one side and you will have a mountain edge on the other side looking straight up. That kind of coastline continues all the way up the west coast until you get to Cape Wrath at the very northwestern point of Scotland. That's the corner where the Atlantic comes into the north coast up by the islands, and the road then hugs the coastline again and it starts to level out. The mountains become more rolling, they're gentle, the landscape starts to become a bit greener, and the further east you go towards John O'Groats, which everyone will have heard of, I'm sure, as the most northerly point of the mainland, the land becomes very green and it starts to become more agricultural. You're going to have passed castles, the Castle of May, which was the late Queen Mother's favourite home in Scotland. Now we're coming south, back down to Inverness. You're going to travel down the road, and to your left is going to be the vast expanse of the Moray Firth and cliffs below you. You're going to be able to see right across the sea, views of 50, 60, 70, 80 miles to the land on the other side. You're going to go past an area called the Flow Country, which is one of the biggest peat boglands in the world. This is a really precious land with wildlife, with flora and fauna, really rare species of plants. There's birds there too. But then you can start to come back into hillier regions again, back into the Firth, so you've got bridges to cross, roads dipping in land and coming out again, but all of it through little villages, through little towns, which might be strung along the road in long, thin communities. It's the most spectacularly beautiful route. It really, really is.
So sometimes the North Coast 500 is referred to as Scotland's Route 66. Has it always been popular, or is this kind of a new thing that people are doing?
About 9 years ago now, I think it was 2015, when it was thought up as an idea. And so before then, it wasn't seen as being a route. Since then, I mean, very quickly, it caught on. It just seemed to get people's imagination. And so I think it was 2017, Condé Nast put it down as one of the best routes in the world. And from then on, it's just gone boom. I suppose not just as a driving route, it's seen as a bit of a challenge. Being 500 miles, you get a lot of people going and cycling it for charity, seeing how fast they can do it. It's seen as this kind of epic route from people, from all over.
So for somebody like me who would be arriving from the States, where do I fly into to rent a car to do this drive?
You fly into Inverness, and that's the nearest airport, right in the heart of the Highlands. And then from the airport, if you wanted to pick up the route directly, you're only 10, 15 miles from the start. And that's it. You're there and you're off.
You can hire camper vans close to the airport. So if that's the way you're going to go, there's also loads of camper vans for hire in Inverness itself. There's the train line now from Aberdeen. It's a 15-minute taxi, and there's buses. So you can go and hire in the centre of town, which I think you probably should, because I don't want you going off straight away, Angie. I want you to stay in Inverness for a night when you arrive, because there's stuff to do here first.
That makes sense. And it's always good, too, to get some rest and get on the right time zone before you hop in a car and start driving these windy roads, right?
Well, I wasn't going to suggest you get a rest. In fairness, I was going to send you down to a really good pub. So I think you need to stop in Inverness. You need to get some traditional music, quite a few drams and some local beers in you to soak up the kind of culture before you set off.
Get the vibe. You want the full Scottish vibe before you get going. If I have one night in Inverness, where am I going for those pints?
McGregor's is Inverness answer to Cheers, where everybody knows your name. They really do. Bruce McGregor, who owns it, he's a world-renowned musician, and he's often playing in the bar. So you go in and there's sessions. So if you're a musician yourself, you can go in and join it. And it has that immediately kind of real Highland feel, brilliant music. It is all local food and drink, and it just gets you into the place. I always think that the route into anywhere is through the food and drink, because that's where you get the stories of a place. So that's why I'm sending you there. But yeah, they'll know your name, Angie. You'll walk in, they'll go, Angie.
They'll see me coming with my camper van that I just park outside. So let's talk about camper van rules and the roads. And I know there's some sharp turns. Are there certain areas to avoid? And where can people find info on that?
There aren't many rules. I think a lot of it is common sense. The difficulty comes with some of our roads aren't designed for bigger vehicles. We've got narrow single track roads that are really narrow. So you have to be really quite careful on these single track roads. There's only one section where they say, if you are in a camper van on the North Coast 500, do not go over a section called the Bealach na Bar, which is Gaelic, forgive my pronunciation, for Pass of the Cattle. And it's where the crofters used to drive their cattle up and over the top of the mountains and down to the rich, fertile ground in a little settlement called Applecross, which has the most beautiful seafood, by the way. But they say, don't take your camper van up here because it's if you imagine one of those like Alpine Pass switchback roads, really steep up the side of the mountains, it's one of those. And it can be beautiful weather at the bottom. It can be thick fog, rain, snow, gales up at the top. There is an alternative coastal route that you can still go round to Applecross and get that seafood. So just be careful on that.
And now the AAA Travel Minute, presented by Hertz. Let's go. Renting a car overseas can give you the freedom to really roam. And with a little planning, it's a breeze. To secure better rates and a good selection of vehicles, start by booking well in advance. Next, apply for an international driving permit. It's a card that translates your license information into 10 languages. Many countries require you to carry it alongside your regular license. Even where it's not mandated, the permit is handy if you get pulled over. You can apply for one at your local AAA branch. Of course, you'll need to familiarize yourself with local driving laws. Some road signs, like the stop sign, are the same everywhere, while other signs and rules vary. Get started with the U.S. State Department's online guide called Driving and Road Safety Abroad. Remember that you'll need insurance that's valid in the country you're driving in. Consider purchasing it directly from the rental agency, but also keep in mind that some travel insurance providers offer policies. Finally, on pickup day, inspect the car and document any scratches or dents. Then buckle up and hit the road. This has been the AAA Travel Minute, presented by Hertz. Let's go. You mentioned people often will do this route on a bicycle. How can they do this safely? What should they bring and where can they find info?
If you don't know the roads up here, I'd be really tempted to go and hook up with a local guide, a local company. There's a brilliant character called Kev Stacey from 42 Cycling, and he will take you and really do bespoke tours of any bit of the route as fast or as long as you like. Look online, there's going to be plenty of companies, and they then can provide you with a lot of the kit and advise you on the best kit to have at different times of year.
If you're on a bike as a jumping off point, you've got the train that comes into Inverness. You can get the train, then get your bike onto the train over to some of the West Coast. And if you want to do hills and mountains, you can do that. But then take your bike inland. Come off the main North Coast 500 route on the map and start going down some of the other smaller roads. The scenery is just as beautiful. It's just as good. But you don't have all the traffic.
Dan mentioned the Bealach na Bar that goes over to Applecross. That's actually become in its own right a really iconic cycle climb for roadies. It's about 6 miles, alpine climb all the way up, and it's an amazing climb. And then you drop down to Applecross.
So you could do a bit of the bike and maybe not think you're going to do 500 miles. Now I'm a little more into the bike idea.
Take an e-bike.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I forget about e-bikes. Those are kind of amazing.
They are amazing, and you would get up those hills, Angie, like a knife through hot butter.
Let's talk about the length of the route because it's 500 miles. So what is a good amount of time to do this drive and really absorb the best of the Highlands?
I think you'd be not doing yourself justice and not doing the route justice if you try to do it really in under 4 days. You'd spend so much time driving and not stopping and enjoying it. I think you should see the route as the route to lots of amazing places, not just a route in and of itself. If you allow yourself a week, you're going to have your night in Inverness at McGregor's, as we've already established. You're going to need a bit of recovery time from that, possibly. But then you're going to be able to go sea kayaking. You might do a bit of that cycling. You can visit castles. You can visit a whiskey distillery. You're going to be able to surf. You're going to be able to visit craft gin. You can get up some of the hills and do some walking. You can really pack it all in if you allow yourself a decent amount of time.
If somebody has a week, what are the things that they absolutely cannot miss?
Dunrobin Castle, which is up on the east side, because it's a spectacular, or it feels like a French chateau, and it will give you a real hit of history. And it's really dramatic. It's right on the coastline. It's right on the route. And then just up the road from there, you're going to go and visit Clynelish Whiskey Distillery, which has got a new visitor centre. The whiskey from there is like a glass of honey. It's a really soft whiskey. If you're not a whiskey fan, it's a great entry whiskey. And then Dan is going to take us where?
We're going to carry on going north from Clynelish. In Thurso, you can go surfing. Now, this is not tropical water, Hawaii kind of surfing. This is cold water surfing. So, wetsuit, maybe a hood to keep you warm, Angie. I'm no surfer. Until we went surfing together, Pennie and I discovered I was. I'd never been surfing before in my life, but under instruction from the local surf school on this beach at Thurso, we went surfing and it was superb. It was the most fun. But after that, we're going to scoot quickly along the coast to a place called Durness. We're going to go and get some really nice chocolate. The best hot chocolate in the north of Scotland at a place called Coca Mountain. This is an amazing chocolate shop.
And you're going to go down some steps that take you down to this massive cave called Smoo Cave, which is really dramatic and a lovely place. And that's where you're going to drink your cocoa while you warm up a bit from all that surfing. And you can have a little tour of the cave. They think it's been occupied going way, way back in time. There's an ancient midden in the cave. I've been in there when they've had concerts in the cave, and the acoustics are amazing. You may pick up some art around the place because Durness has also got quite an interesting art community. There's ceramicists, a lot of people drawn to that part of the world because of the landscape and how beautiful it is. Then you are going down to my favourite part of Scotland, possibly my favourite part of anywhere on the planet, because you're going to start dropping down towards Assynt. And so now I'm going to take you to Lochimver. You're going to get a Lochimver pie, of which there's much choice. Are you a sweet or savoury, Angie? Which are you going to be, sweet or savoury with your pie?
Let's go savory for now.
We'll pop a sweet one in our pockets as well, just in case. And then we're going to climb up one of the incredible hills and mountains in Assynt. I think I'm going to take you up Sullivan, which is like a sugarloaf. And from there, you're going to be able to look across this landscape that is just stunning. It's like there's all these lochans, so all these little lochs. It's like someone's taken a mirror and shattered it and thrown it across the landscape. And all these lochans are winking back at you. And we're going to climb up to Sullivan. It's quite a long way in. We've got to walk for 6 miles before we start going up. And then it's straight up. But we're going to sit up there and eat our pie. And then, Dan, I don't know where we're going next, but at the moment, me and Angie are on top there eating a pie.
You're going to keep on coming a bit further south, Angie, and you're going to arrive in Ullapool. It's where I live. It is a beautiful little fishing village on the west coast. And we might go and do some dolphin and whale spotting on a trip out to sea around some of the islands there. We might see some sea eagles sort of circling around the top of the cliff tops. We could go on a couple of guided walks on around some of the hills around here. And we will go and eat seafood that's caught at the harbour and then cooked just locally and straight in front of you. And there it is. So we'll have langoustine, which are Dublin Bay prawns or something like that. So we'll have those. We might have some scallops. Will have been dived locally and just landed that morning. Crabs, all sorts, just beautiful seafood. Cooked on the seafront, landed in the harbour and eaten away. We might even wash that down with one of our 2 local gins in the village here. And then we're going to sit on the harbour wall
I'm then going to take you from Ullapool. You're going to go to the Corrie Gorge. And I don't know whether you've got I don't know how adventurous you are, Angie, but there's this amazing gorge just outside of Ullapool, still on the route. And a little while ago, Dan and myself went with 2 local guides and we went canyoning up this gorge, and you can go up. It's quite a slippery trek, but you end up right deep in the gorge under a waterfall, just thundering down above you. It is absolutely incredible. So we're going to go there, quickly nip up and down the Corrie Gorge, because that is an amazing, really rare experience, and you feel like you're right in the heart of this ancient landscape. Corrie has got a lovely new visitor centre, so we might have a quick cup of tea, because we like a cup of tea here, before we move on. And then Dan's going to take you to the next place, which will be down, towards Poole U or somewhere. Where are you going to go, Dan?
We're going to go into a little village called Alt Bay, first of all. There's a fascinating museum in Alt Bay dedicated to the Arctic convoys from World War II. For people who don't know, these convoys came from America. They came from around the United Kingdom. They congregated in the northwest coast of Scotland before heading off to northern Russia to resupply Russia when they were needing support during the war. An awful lot of the convoys didn't make it. An awful lot of lives were lost. But there are some fascinating stories about these convoys, and some of the amount of shipping that was in the loch here was incredible. We're going to carry on down to a place called Inverewe Gardens. This is it's a National Trust of Scotland garden that was designed by a man called Osgood Mackenzie, who was an international plant collector. So in these walled gardens overlooking the sea, which because of the Gulf Stream, we get this warm boost of tropical warm air and water coming to the west coast of Scotland. We've got the most spectacular international garden with plants that you won't find anywhere else in Scotland. There's a heron hatchery nest just beside in the gardens there. So we'll go to the gardens and then keep on heading south.
It's not just a road trip. The road trip is the mechanism, but there's so much to it.
I think it showcases the very, very, very best of the north of Scotland. It's very fortunate that it's able to be all interconnected on a map by a road. But these things have always been here, and they'll always be here.
I do want to ask about seasonal concerns. Is there a time when people should maybe not come? Or is it really all year round, it's just a different experience?
I think it is a very different experience according to the time of year. One thing that you should think about is the light. And people don't often think about it, but actually in the winter, we have very short daylight hours. And so the day really does become compressed, and it starts getting dark probably about 3:30 in the afternoon and doesn't get light until well past 9 in the morning. So you're not gonna be able to have a lot of hours to play with if you're in the middle of the winter. Although if you're someone who likes going out and doing winter climbing, winter walking, it's extraordinary. I personally love spring and autumn because I think the colours are amazing. And if you go in the spring, probably before the end of May time, just in the start of June, you're going to miss the midgie season. Dan probably has much more experience with midgies than me because he's over on the west where they hang out. But I'll let him tell you more about the midgies.
Tell us about the midgies, because my mind is running away with me. That could be all sorts of things.
A midgie, it's like a small biting mosquito, gnat, fly thing that will really, really ruin your day. End of May is normally about the best time of year because we've got long daylight hours, we've got stable weather, so we've got bluebird skies at the moment and no midgies. When the midgies come out, they bite and they itch and they like to get into all your nooks and crannies, your ears, your nose, your hair, and they're horrible little things. When the sun is shining and it's bright and there's a lot of sunlight, they don't like it. If there's a bit of a breeze as well, then obviously they can't get around in the breeze. So a good day is a nice day with a bit of breeze, but a warm, damp, still day with no wind, that's the day to hope you packed a good book, because you can go outside and some people find the midgies are instantly attracted to them. Some people seem to be able to muscle it out, but find a bit of breeze, hope the sun shines, and you'll be fine. You can get some skin remedies to rub on. You can buy them in the outdoor shops as you go around the route, to like sprays, anti-midgy mosquito sprays and stuff.
So this is an excellent sales pitch for coming in winter, I'd say. You can avoid these little terrors.
The other thing about winter here, or even at the moment we've had some amazing displays, is the Northern Lights. You can get incredible displays of the Northern Lights while you're on the NC 500. I mean, like jaw-dropping displays from Inverness upwards.
And that's probably best seen October to March because of longer nighttime hours.
Yeah, it's going to be better in autumn and winter.
Tell us about accommodations and the amazing B&B culture that the UK has.
Bed and breakfast is a big thing in the UK. There's some cracking little bed and breakfast. And I guess the nice thing about bed and breakfast culture is you're often staying in someone's house. So that really does make it feel like you've really visited somewhere as opposed to just pass through it or round it. The main thing is the route gets busy. So the further ahead you can book, the better. And as I say, get plugged into the culture. And it's always great. You go and meet someone at the B&B and they can give you great ideas for what else to visit in their location, their area. It's like having a mini tourist guide every time you stop. So I think that's a good way of doing it as long as you book ahead.
Some of these small villages like Ullapool and some of the smaller ones can be overwhelmed at the peak of the summer season, the tourist season. But what the North Coast 500 does is brought people around for longer periods of the year. So the tourist season is extended and people are more set up to providing things for tourists through the winter, through the shoulder months or the shoulder seasons as well.
What makes this a trip that everybody needs to do? Why is it so special and why should it be on everybody's bucket list?
I think Scotland is a really special place. And I think to come and do the North Coast 500 is a way of plugging you directly into like pure Scotland, the wilderness, the history, the food, the drink. It's got it all. It's a chance to, I think, get into the true part of the culture.
And I think this part of the North Highlands and everything that you can see and do and experience in and around the North Coast 500 route, it celebrates the very best of our culture, our community, our people, and how all of those things are connected and interconnected. All the hills have very special names in Gaelic. If you go into Google Translate and translate them, they mean something. The lochs will mean something. And that is all inherently linked to our culture here in the North Highlands.
Dan Holland and Pennie Stuart, thank you for joining us. And thank you, our listeners, for being with us. If you're planning a trip, be sure to connect with a AAA travel advisor. Check out AAA.com/travel or visit your local branch. This podcast is a production of Auto Club Enterprises. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a review. I'm Angie Orth. Thank you for traveling with AAA.